Thanks so much for the lovely introduction, Jess. I'm Jesse Bradley, and this is Storytime with Jesse Bradley. Each week, every time I do this, every other week, I come up with a story that I believe to be true, um, unprepared. So this is entirely it is improvised, and it's either a story or an essay with some sort of narrative thread to it. Before I get started, want to lay out a couple of not so much rules, but things. Some of the content in which I explore may be of serious content and could be potentially triggering. So just wanted just a potential content warning out there, because whatever comes out, it comes out. And I don't know where I'm going to go as I'm trying to explore this. Also, any of the names referenced, at least like the people, they have been changed to protect their anonymity. So with those things being said, the last few times I've been doing my figuring out the narrative, been doing it based on the jam that happens before this. And there are a couple of interesting things that came out, mostly about food and about Disney. And I'm going to somehow connect these two things together tonight. So here we go. One of my favorite attractions growing up at Epcot, it was the Living Seas. So Living Seas, it was this essentially an aquarium, but it was really like an undersea water base. And I was a big fan of this because of a little known show called SeaQuest, DSV. So think of it as like Star Trek, but underwater in the deep space that is our ocean. So I'm totally on board with all things underwater. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the Living Seas. This is awesome. So when you go in and you finally get to go inside, you step into an elevator that brings you into this undersea base. And within the undersea base, there are fish of different sizes and varieties swimming around. You get to try on and be in the underwater spacesuit with the claw. It was just so amazing to be in as a kid. It just felt so very, very magical for me. And then flash forward, it was around, I think, 2004. And I don't know, 2005. And my then girlfriend, Marie, we are at Epcot with another couple who's friends with them. And the Living Seas is still around at this point. And I'm excited because I'm remembering these things. I'm in my 20s at this point, and I'm just remembering, okay, I remember how cool the Living Seas is. And so I go, okay, we have to go to the Living Seas. We have to do this. And we go, and we get inside. The line is super quick. And then I step into the elevator, and I look down. When I look down, I notice that the floor is shaking. And in the very moment that the floor is shaking, it dawns on me that this is not an elevator that we're actually in, that we're not actually going underneath. We're not going underneath somewhere to some sort of undersea base. The floor is shaking to create the illusion of going underwater and going into this deep sea base. And in that moment, I'm going, oh, fuck, the floor's been shaking this entire time. And the magic in that moment, that magic that I had, all those feelings that I had about just being underwater in this undersea base and doing this amazing thing, is completely destroyed. My illusion, this illusion that I had, that I held in my mind, was completely and utterly destroyed, all because the floor was shaking. It was more devastating to me than finding out that Santa wasn't really Santa, that it was really my mom and my stepdad hiding presents, which I figured that out very early on. And I even started helping them like when I was 8 years old. Or even like the illusion of religion being completely shattered after my mom and my stepdad got divorced and we stopped going to church And my mom at that point, she goes, you know, God's not going to put a shirt on your back, on our backs, or food in our stomachs, or a roof over our head. I am. And I just remember that, just the whole thing, the whole illusion just being gone. It devastated me more than those particular things. And there was something else. I feel like as you grow up and you grow old, the things that you believe in, the things that you love, just somehow get utterly destroyed because of just you evolve and you change. And I've had a really complex relationship with food, because my mother, she had an eating disorder, and that affected her relationship with food, which is the way that it affected our relationship with food, the way that she cooked food, and the way that we dealt with food. My grandmother was constantly planning menus, like you're at breakfast and she's asking you, what do you want for lunch and dinner for the next 3 days? And I'm like, I have no idea. And she did this until she had Alzheimer's, and that took that away from her. So my whole family, we've had this whole really, really complex relationship with food. And I remember once I was able to work and I was able to have a job, to be able to pay for my own food, like eating whatever I wanted. Just I'm eating McDonald's like whenever I want. I'm eating Burger King whenever I want. I'm eating Checkers whenever I want. Not really thinking of my health at all, because I want to taste things and have these things, but only really fast food, because it's a comfort food. It just feels really good to eat. And my relationship to food, one of the things I particularly loved, that I just held in high esteem, was EL fudge sandwich cookies. So the EL fudge sandwich cookie, it is essentially the Keebler Elf. It's about this big. And the variant, that the classic version that I was into, it was a vanilla wafer. So you had the vanilla wafer front, vanilla wafer back, and it was stitched together by chocolate frosting. And I just remember every time just decapitating one of those elves and just feeling the vanilla wafers just disintegrate ever so slowly. And then comes the fudge, and just that mix. It was just absolutely one of the most perfect bites I've ever had in my entire life. And what started changing this relationship with this particular cookie and food in general was my then girlfriend, who eventually became my first wife, Marie. When we met, she lost 40 pounds. She went from being 4'11", 200 pounds to 160 pounds. And she was working on losing 40 more. And we're together a couple of years in at this point. And she's really like working on finally losing the last 40 for her. And she's just changing the way that she's eating and everything. And here I am being a complete asshole. And I'm still eating fast food. I'm still eating Whoppers when we're together in front of her. It's almost like I'm torturing her doing this. And she eventually calls me out on it. She goes, Jess, you're being an asshole. You need to stop doing this. And I realized, like, okay, like we're together for a couple of years at this point. I'm like, okay, you're right. And I'm about, I think, 5'7" and 180 something pounds. And I decide that I'm going to join her and do right by her in doing this. And I end up, over the summer of 2006, I start doing Slim Fast, morning and afternoon. I do a treadmill for at least an hour a day, and then just dinner. And I'm working crazy hours as a trainer at this point, and I'm just on the treadmill, just being miserable, drinking Slim Fast, only letting myself maybe have Cheerios if I'm hungry. Cheerios it's one of my go-to snacks when I'm drunk or in general. And I'm doing this for months and months and months. And I'm not thinking about it. I'm maintaining this particular habit. And I don't realize, like, and I'm also really not trying to weigh myself, because I'm trying to like not really focus or pay attention to, I'm paying attention to doing it and paying attention more to the process than just, not so much the process, to the actual end result versus just the actual process itself. And it's August, and I'm at the National Poetry Slam as a competitor, and also I was fielding the slam team out of Orlando. And someone who I haven't seen in a while, he goes, "You look great." And I'm just like, really? I do? Because I've always had self-esteem issues where I don't always feel like I look great. And I'm shocked by this person who I haven't seen in months go, "You look great." So I go to the fitness center and I step on the scale and I see that I've gone from 180 something pounds to 150 pounds. And I'm like, holy shit, I did it. I haven't been thinking about it this whole time. And I've actually done this. I've lost this weight. I've been so miserable this whole time and I've lost this weight. And I decided to just ease up a little bit. I start actually eating regular meals again. I'm a lot more careful about what I eat. I start choosing to eat better things. I'm eating more vegetarian food. I'm starting to cook better. I'm actually using seasoning and flavors that I didn't grow up with because of my family's relationship with food. Their idea of flavoring was pepper or ketchup. My grandmother, I remember her going, "Would you like some spaghetti with your burgers?" Which is just so really weird to me at that time, because you should have French fries with burgers, not spaghetti. It's just really odd and really weird. And I'm starting to really enjoy food and experiment, and I start cooking better. And years and years later, it's 2014, and I'm dating who becomes my second wife, Janine. And I talked about EL fudges with Janine, probably one of those things where you talk about childhood, like childhood snacks, or one of those topics that comes up in conversation with a partner. And I just go on and on and on and on about how EL fudge, this is the most perfect cookie in the world. I love this cookie so much. I haven't had it in a while because I've been working out. I've been a lot more careful about what I've been eating. And it's Easter of 2014 when Janine surprises me with an Easter basket of my favorite things. So this is Woodford Reserve. It's a fantastic bourbon from Kentucky. Gosling's ginger beer, which goes perfectly well with Woodford Reserve. And then a big old packet of EL fudge. And I'm blown away because Janine has clearly listened. She knows what I like, and she has gotten this thing for me for Easter. And I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. Thank you so much. And as soon as I can, when I'm back in my apartment, I put the EL fudge in the fridge because that's the way I liked eating it. I liked eating it refrigerator cold. And I'm just thinking about just that perfect bite, decapitating the elves and just letting the marrow, the chocolate marrow, just melt on my tongue. And I'm just thinking, like, this is going to be the most amazing thing. It has been too long. I have earned this. I have deserved this because I've been really careful. And I open up the fridge and I open up the pack, the EL fudge, and I take the sleeve out, the shelf. It's more like a shelf than a sleeve. And I pick one of them up and I'm smelling his head, like, yes, this smells like I remember. And then I bite and I chew. And something doesn't feel right. And I bite and I chew and something doesn't feel right. And I finish off the legs and I chew and it doesn't feel right. And what I'm realizing is that my tastes have changed. That because I went from eating fast food, like almost like every other day or every third day, to cooking for myself and being picky about the kind of ingredients that I get, just watching like my portion sizes and everything, that my taste have evolved so much that the magic that I once felt about eating an eel fudge cookie was completely and utterly gone. And I was okay with that. Like I accepted that. For a moment, I felt it was devastating. Like, here's this thing that I held up to this high esteem, this high standards, as growing up, because it was one of those things that brings you comfort when you're not feeling great, or you're dealing with like a broken home. Like sometimes you're eating just those feelings, and not feeling the same way about the cookie, and the cookie that I once like held in high esteem. It was the loss of something. It was the loss of that feeling, of that childhood feeling, of that comfort. But also at the same time, I'm just going, I've evolved. I moved, like I'm eating better, and I have moved past this, and I'm okay with this. And my relationship with food, it starts becoming, again, a bit more complicated, because I end up working from home, and I end up marrying Janine, and Janine is not as fitness conscious as I am, and I let myself start like letting things go a bit more and indulging a bit more, to where I start gaining the weight back, and I'm looking at myself and I'm hating myself because I'm gaining the weight back, and it becomes this really perpetual ugly cycle of I'm gaining the weight, I'm gaining the weight back, and I'm depressed. So I'm going to go eat this thing. I'm going to go make myself some lamb. I'm going to have myself like three really exotic beers that are about 300 calories or so. I'm going to not work out as much. I'm working 40, 50 hours a week. I'm going to graduate school. I want to feel better. So I'm going to eat this thing that I have made, and it's going to be delicious. Charcuterie is great. Olive oil, cheese, it's awesome. It's fantastic. Yes. And I'm doing a little bit of working out too, but not like the cycling I used to do, like 20, 30, 20 miles a day, where I could reward myself with eating something like really bad, because I've burned about 900 to 1,000 calories. And it gets to that point where I actually have gained back all my weight, if not more. And I'm not liking myself. I'm hating myself because of the way I look, because I lost all this weight, and I allowed myself to gain it all back. And that it's a perpetually ugly cycle. And Janine and we separate, and I'm still like in this weird cycle of like eating, like drinking the most boozy beers, even though I know that I'm having it's like eating a sandwich, and then eating out because I'm stressed about the divorce, and then eventually the pandemic comes, and that makes things even worse, because the pandemic hasn't stopped, especially here in Florida. And whenever you're in times of stress, people have different coping mechanisms, and one of my coping mechanisms I know is food. That when I'm feeling down and I'm not feeling so great, like I want to eat something that's gonna give me those feelings, those emotions that make me feel good, that make me feel better. Like most recently, I've discovered a recipe for biscuits that you can make, that take you 5 minutes to make, to put the ingredients together, and then 10 minutes to bake. And they're called no fail biscuits, and they're amazing. And just whenever I eat one, it just makes me feel really, really good. about myself. It just feels like there's that magic because I'm eating something that I have made and it's utterly delicious. And the thing that's caused me to just have a reckoning once again with food was when I saw the doctor in March. I haven't seen a doctor. It's been a bit since I've seen a doctor. I saw a doctor like last year before COVID, and he was like, your blood pressure is elevated, your cholesterol is just a little bit high. And being with StatCat, my fiance, I'm realizing like, okay, this is a reckoning. I've met this person. I want to be with them. I want to have as much time as I possibly can with StatCat because, I'm 42 years old, 41 at that point. And we've just met, we've been together for a year, and I want to marry her and I want to spend the rest of my life with her. And I don't want the rest of my life to be like 10 years or 20 years. I want like 40, 50, 60 years because my biggest regret is not, finding this person sooner. So I go to the doctor, and the doctor, you get blood work done, and the doctor's like, yeah, your cholesterol's elevated. Your cholesterol's high. Like it's elevated. You might need medication for it. Your blood pressure is not great either. Your blood pressure is a little high. And that scared me. It scared me so damn much because my comfort, the things that I needed, it was doing me in. And that's when I started really recommitting. I started becoming a bit more vegetarian. I cut butter out because I wanted to be with StatCat so much. I want a long life with her. I commit to working out 5 to 6 hours a week. Like that's a lot. Like I know most people are like, you should work out 150 minutes a day, or not a day, a week. And then I read another study that's like, really 5 hours is better. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do 5 hours. I'm going to do 5 hours a week. And I've been incredibly good at keeping that up. I do cycling. I do weights. And when it comes back in July, when I have to do a 6-month follow-up, I get my numbers. I get my numbers back. And I actually reduced my cholesterol by 50 points. And I'm still doing these things. I'm at 180 pounds still, but I don't hate myself the way I used to. I'm okay with who I am and my body. And I still like to enjoy the things I like to enjoy, but I'm a lot more careful about it because I still want to just feel good, but I also want to make sure that I have as much time as I possibly can with StatCat. So yeah. Thanks for listening, all. A couple of really quick plugs. I believe I'm hoping they're going to shout this out, but Highwire Improv is selling a deck of cards that helps with improv and whatnot. And I don't have the website off the top of my head, but I know they're going to shout it out. Please purchase it. Please also donate if you can to Planned Parenthood or any other organizations that are supporting a woman's right to choose, because this is a stupid thing that we should not be fighting about. Like it's a difficult decision to make at any time, and I'm a dude, and it's not my place to tell a woman to like not do that. It's my place to use birth control. So. And just be a good person about it. So yeah, please donate to Planned Parenthood and any other organization that supports a woman's right to choose. And you can check out my comics and at Questionable Decision Comics. Again, thank you all so much for listening. Please enjoy the next group that is coming up, which I believe Jess is going to introduce.